morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Brian.
Well, here we are again. And the only reason why we are here is to bear witness. Not to something physical, things that appear as whatever it is that we either think is good or whether these things are evil or whatever. We are coming to bear witness of an invisible activity that is taking place regardless of all what we do or say. It's grace and truth, which cannot be known with the mind or with the human mind, which is, we know now that it's not really a mind, is it? The human mind is a perception of things that are totally erroneous. So when we look at the world at large, and even our circumstances and the people that are around us, and of course some of the problems that they have, and even the good things that seem to be happening to them, we are drawing conclusions and we put values on certain things, and then we are forming a whole world that God did not create. It's really an amazing thing what has happened over the many years we know today as the world and its nations and its science and even its religions and its gods and all the things that are so important today to people that call themselves humans. These humans are existing by the belief that we were born into a world, and that what came out of the womb of a woman we believe to be me. You've been given a name and you've been given a color, a creed or whatever it is, and that's what you think you are. And everybody else thinks that you are that too because they know you. And you know yourself, you look in the mirror and you see, well, that's me. And because we are believing that, we are actually under law, or the law of beliefs. Now, right from the beginning, when God spoke, and it says in John, in the beginning there was willed action. That willed action is not a thing that, you know, that we know as humans as a will. It's my will that that I should do this or do that, and I'm going to proceed in doing the things that I think need to be done every day. You know, cleaning the house or going to work and earning a living or whatever it is. But all these things have come about because we believe that we need to survive. And that belief that we must survive as what we know today as our human existence is a fallacy, because there is no such thing as a human existence. Human existence, what we know today, is what Paul calls knowing myself after the flesh. And I know myself after that which I call matter. Yeah? Flesh and blood. That's matter, isn't it? It's made out of molecules. It's made out of atoms. It's made out of things which you can't even see. Can't even look. You find under the microscope. You can barely, of course now they can do that a bit more than they have ever done before, investigate and look into the smallest particle, what we know today as matter. And of course Einstein found out that the smallest particle, what we know today as matter, is the particle called the photon, the light. Now light itself, as we see it, is still what we call in the realm of matter. Because that which is beyond that what we can observe, even light, whatever it is that we can see, observe, is not a thing what God knows about. Now this is a strange affair, because God does not know you as a physical being or form that was born of a woman, born under the law according to the scriptures, and we are subject to the curse of the law because we believe that we are matter. We are flesh and blood. We are black or white. We are Dutch or German or whatever we think we are, you know what I mean? We think that we are really something that we believe very strongly. And of course, attached to the belief that we were born, that we are matter, that we are made out of atoms, you know what I mean? They become on the law. They might say, why do I come on the law? I want to be free from the law. But you can't be free from the law as long as you believe that you were born. You know, I get emails from people that say, well, you know, I really love to hear about what you're saying, but my body is aching, everything is going wrong, my life is just in a mess, what do I do about it? How can I find that place of harmony, that place where I can live and not suffer the pain and the anguish of soul that I have, and the problems every day, how hard it is to deal with it all? Well, you know, and I really feel for all those that are suffering because of us, because of the belief that we are flesh and blood. Now, right from the beginning, man has never known that he was a spiritual being. Without father, without mother, without beginning, and without ending. It simply wasn't known. You know, we were looking at the appearances of things and we were governed by it so strongly that we stayed in that place where all die. But you know, when Jesus came on the scene, he began to reveal a mystery and began to bear witness to the reality that we were not made out of flesh and blood, that we were not born of flesh and blood. So we had to be born again, as it were, but not born again, you know, of a woman, not again born of flesh and blood, but rather to become again reunited with that which is spirit. You know, 2 Timothy 1 says that life and immortality came to light through the gospel. So we're now dealing with a revelation that's coming to us. If you want to escape the corruption that we know as this world, and none of them are, not one human being that has ever lived is going to escape the corruption. There is an avenue, a way that can cause us to become aware of another realm. You know? A realm that has nothing to do with time or space or matter. You know? It's a realm of spirit, and we know that God is spirit, isn't it right? And whatever God begot out of himself is spirit. It's not matter. God did not create matter. In the beginning, God begot spirit, not matter, not form as we know it today, not a world with all sorts of images and forms and planets and solar systems and everything what we began to investigate, all relating to that thing called the atom. Now, right from the beginning, there was a man called Democritus, who had an inkling that there was something so small that we could not investigate with the senses, that there was something else beyond just that what we call and touch and feel and examine with our hands, eyes, ears, whatever we put a value to. He began to realize that there was something so small that we can't investigate it with the mind or with the senses. But you know, people were not satisfied, so there was a lot of philosophy and reason about it. Is there something smaller? And actually Socrates found that there is a endless way of smallers, or it can be smaller and smaller and smaller. Where does it end and where does it cease to be small? Make it smaller, but how can you make it smaller if it's the smallest? Can you make it still smaller? Well, you know, this is the thing, the mystery came that Einstein discovered, that the photon was the smallest. At least the smallest particle that we can associate with matter. It was the smallest. But then he said, because out of the study, he discovered the formula of the atom, which was then, of course, the smallest particle of matter. And he began to find out that energy, this E, equals mass times the velocity of light squared. That is the revelation of the atom, the smallest. And in that atom was so much energy that even in the top of your finger would be enough energy and enough power to blow up the world 100 times more. So that he began to discover the energy that is in that atom. And today even all science is based upon believing that God created a world that we know today as a structural universe with atoms and molecules and all that type of stuff. And you know what? And consequently, we believe that we are matter. And consequently, we experience the beginning and the end of our matter, which is flesh and blood. And as long as we are in that realm of matter, in the realm of the atoms, and even theology agrees in that we are in the science of matter, we can even believe that. So there was a conflict between the evolutionary processes of of Darwin, you know what I mean, and of course the Adam and Eve story. To the creation, or the other one was the revelation of the atom and of the science. And you know, both are wrong. We didn't come from the apes, and we do not come from the thing called matter, what we call then the atom. And as long as we believe either in Adam and Eve story or the thing of what we call matter, we will die. So the paradigm shift has to take place in everyone's consciousness, that begins to realize that I am just as invisible and incorruptible as God is in my true identity, which is not matter. Now Jesus transcended that belief in, of course he didn't, I don't know whether he knew about the atoms, maybe he didn't, but that's beside the point, but he did know that my Father and I are one spiritual constitution. It has nothing to do with physicality. And by the way, you're made out of so-called what you think it is by science. You're made out of molecules, and the molecules and the atoms, in the atom itself there is space. There's a nucleus in the atom, and there's neutrons around, you know, they're building around, but there's all that space. If we would take the space out of the atoms of your body, you would be as big as a grain of salt, or a grain of sand. If you take all the little bits of space what exists in your atomic structure, what you call your body, you would be as big as a grain of sand, but just as heavy as you were before. Because the atom is the weight that we believe is the value, you know. We do not consider the space in between. But when we take the space in between that, we are only just as big as a grain of sand, but weighing just as much as you are now in your physical frame. So if we would take, for instance, the space out of the atoms of the Australian Navy and all its ships and all that, we would probably finish up with some point of matter as big as a golf ball. But just as heavy as it was before. So if you would have that, it would just fall through the floor, you know. So the imaginary universe, what we have formed and believed in for so many centuries, in the atomic theory and the belief, and Einstein said, I must step off or out of that belief. Even his theory of the atom, which they use for destructive purposes, and it says because of that, it was promised actually by the scientists never to use it for evil purposes, and they did, and broke his heart and he died. Okay. Oh yes, science is very, very phenomenal, really something else what we have come about, and it's all based upon a knowledge that God did not ordain for us to have. So we got so much knowledge about the science, even of the body, and of the universe at large, yet we cannot save ourselves. We cannot preserve ourselves. Because what we try to preserve is not what you are. You are a spiritual being before Abraham was. Abraham had the inkling And he began to give credence to Melchizedek, who is without father, without mother, without structural body, without any form that we know today as a person, or a human being, or whatever, you know. So we are dealing with something that is so great and so wonderful if we can just let go of the belief in matter. Can we do that? I mean, how do we do that? Well, first you have to come to a place where God says, let us reason together. Thou your sins are as red as scarlet, they will be as white as the driven snow. Huh? What does it mean? Well, it is coming back into communion. And actually I've written a letter in it's called The Mystical Marriage. And I think all of us are beginning to sense a peace, especially because when we now realize that I'm not flesh and blood. I was never born of a woman. I have no responsibility. What do you think why Jesus said, woman, what I have to do with you? Saying, you are not my mother in that sense, that my life is not generated out of the womb of flesh and blood. Even though it was immaculate, conceived, it was still matter, wasn't it? So Jesus was born the same way we were. Dying, he could die, otherwise if he would be spirit he couldn't die. So he took upon himself the same atomic structural body, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem them, or to bring them that were all their lifetime subject to law, into the freedom of the revelation that we are spiritual beings. We do not become spiritual being, okay? Sometimes we think that when we are born again and become a Christian, that we then become spiritual being. No, you don't. You have always been spiritual being. You always had a spiritual father that loves you, that doesn't judge anybody, that doesn't do anything. All what we experience in our humanity is because of that belief that I am born of a woman. Huh? All due respect for women and men and what has happened in families and things like that. I mean, that's all wonderful, yeah, from an appearance level. But then you find out that you never know, because you're under Murphy's Law, anything could happen. And you say, oh, why is this happening to this wonderful person? Well, because there is no such thing as a wonderful person. There's no person. And because we believe that we are a person, and we have children being a person, because they're all born, and they're all associated with the structural universe, with the atom, with the molecules, with everything else like that. And in that we need bread to eat, don't we? We need education, we need, you know, all that kind of stuff works in the human world. But like I say, you might be lucky to live healthy and wealthy life, but it doesn't mean that you are going to discover everlasting being, you know. You might be successful in everything you do, or you might be a failure in everything you do. And sometimes it's better to be a failure in everything you do, to find out it doesn't work that way. So, you know, true success comes by coming to the end of your tether. Sometimes, you know, even like myself. And Jesus said, you will not leave my soul in hell, or in the belief that I was born, that my life started somewhere. So I ask you a question. Just think back to when you were, I mean, if you could think back that far. I'm in a bit of trouble now thinking back that far, because of the advancing years, you're almost, because you forget. And sometimes it's good to forget, isn't it? I was talking to a person the other day, and she said, I don't want to remember. And she couldn't remember because, something begins to happen to your human brain that is gradually losing the ability to remember. And of course the remembrance is of your physical life, of the experience that you had. And all of us like to reminiscent about what happened 20 years ago, if it was good, if it was bad, I don't want to remember. I want to forget. All these kind of stuff. But you see, that's all part of the time realm where we have dwelled in for so long. And now I got to forget what I remembered and remember what I have forgotten. What have I forgotten? I have forgotten my true identity that I was in the beginning with God. Long before I was born in a world where I began to become aware of myself and the pain and and the good feelings and the bad feelings and and the emotional upheavals that can happen in that realm. And until through all these experiences of my human existence, I came to realize that I was still dissatisfied with everything what I experienced. And there was not much of the what I would call the success that I could, try to remember as a foundation for my life, because it wasn't working. I'm glad. Because then my attention was drawn to that which was invisible. It was already there when I was a little child, when I was, 9, 10 years old, and I was walking through the woods and I was a bit of a loner. I would lie on the grass and look at the sky and say, what is this all about? Why am I here for? I've seen all these bad things happening around about me and not much good, and I was terrorized by the neighbor boy who would threaten me and punish me and do all, and I was scared. But then, after many, many years, at the age of about 45, 40, something like that, when I made my bed in hell. Now some people made their bed in hell of a hell of disease, a hell of a relationship that didn't work, or the conflicts that exist in whatever. And it doesn't really matter what it is on a human level. It's all suffering somewhere along the line, not very happy. I find myself in a place that, my God, is there a God? And then I find out later on that the only God there is my own self-awareness of it. Now that's something, isn't it? The only God there is when I become aware of my true self, because that's what God is. My true awareness of my true identity is what I am. And beside, there is no other God formed. I'm going to read from Isaiah. Now this is not talking about a future Savior to come, okay? That is something that existed right from the moment that God said, let there be light, and there was light. That light is the light that lights up every man that comes into the world. That is the light of life. And Jesus said, I am the light of life. Huh? I am the light of the world. And he that follows me. How can we follow Jesus? What do we follow? Have you ever thought, what do you follow? Are you trying to be good, behave yourself and all that? And morally excellent and give up coffee and drink and smoking and drinking and even sex, That didn't work too good. No, following Jesus in the regenesis. The regeneration. Do you understand that? Regenesis means to be remembering. Remembering that what I am already from the beginning, which I lost the awareness of. Are you understanding that? I've always been absolutely wonderful, whatever. I can't say that about my humanity, can you know? Jesus said, why do you call me good in my humanity? I can't do anything for you. But once you recognize and see me, what I am, not who I am, but what I am, I can lead you into the realm of the place that I will prepare for you. That where I am, that you can follow me there. Because Peter said to the Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. And what did Jesus say? Follow. Peter, listen, you can't follow me now. Even if you try to follow me, you will deny me 3 times even before we got that far. Because Peter was still a human. He was still trying to preserve himself. With a sword if necessary. And what did Jesus say? Put away your sword. Those that live by the sword, or those that try to change the circumstances on the level of the circumstance by human effort or force, or whatever it is, then you will lose, you will die, you will not succeed. So following Jesus said, he that followeth me shall not walk in the darkness of the molecular structural form that you think you are. Because that's darkness. As long as you think you are human, you live in darkness. And how can you help people that experience so many terrible things in their lives, what they call their lives then, which is not their lives, but they still suffer. But it's still a maladjustment, because we need to come out of this belief that we were born. That is the hardest thing to do, and I agree with you. But we can follow Jesus in the regeneration. Jesus experienced the regeneration when he said, I must go away as a human being. I must go away. As a man, as you can see, born of Mary and Joseph, I must go away, so that which is true, or that which is spirit, can be revealed. Huh? And what was revealed when they were on the ship, and they were, in the middle of the ocean there, and they were so afraid because it began to storm, and the waves were boisterous, and they thought they were going to drown, and they cried out for fear, and suddenly they saw something walking on the water. Now let me tell you, a being that is made of flesh and blood cannot walk on water. I don't care if it's Jesus, the man. cannot walk on water. So something happened to Jesus, don't you think so? That he transcended the molecular structural belief that he was made out of atoms, made out of flesh and blood, and he walked as a spiritual form on the water, which is our true identity. All of us. And we must lose that heaviness, that weighty, the thing that we call our body, that is so, and all of us are aware of that, we all are aware of that, and some of us like to lose some of that fat around it and all that stuff. It's all part of the dream. Well, you could have fooled me. I checked my scales. Yeah, I know. The matter is getting heavier, But when we focus into the spiritual dimensions of life, in our meditations, I can guarantee you that you will begin to lose whatever you think you have as excess weight or whatever, I'm not promising you that, I'm telling you there are possibilities, okay? Because I must also think about these things sometimes. No. And he that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. The light of life. Inside. Get the feeling of it. There's something happening. And I want to be part of it, don't you? Then the Pharisee said unto him, you bear record of yourself. Your record is not true. Then Jesus answered and said, thou art bear record of myself, yet my record is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going, but you cannot tell from where I came from or where I am going. You judge after the atomic, you judge after the flesh, you judge after the appearance, you judge after what you can see and evaluate in your mind. You think this is a man. How can a man claim to be God? Well, Jesus didn't do that. He never said he was God. But he could bear witness of the truth that my Father and I are one. So humanity can never claim to be spiritual. It all has to die. And of course that is the mystical marriage, when our whole, if you like to call it your soul, your mind, becomes aware of that activity of grace and of truth, revealing line upon line, and God speaking to you. And that what speaks to you is your true identity, to let you know that the mind realm is renewed by the Spirit of it. And Colossians, it tells us that, and I'll come back to Colossians tells us in chapter 3, lie not one to another, that's chapter 3 verse 9, seeing that you have put off the old man, or the atomic man, or the material man, with his deeds and his beliefs, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge. What kind of knowledge? More religious knowledge? More Bible knowledge? Because somebody was telling me, we got so much teaching going on now, but I don't have any manifestation of something what seems to be, valuable to me. Well, that's true. First of all, there is the letter of truth, what we gotta learn. But then there is the experience of the new order, of the order of Melchizedek, the realm of an endless life where there is no death. Death is no more in the new man. In the new man there cannot be anything or come or happen that defiles you or make a lie. Nothing can happen in that man because it's God. Can something happen to God? What is this I am? That Moses had a revelation of that. I am that I am. And you know, he took these people by that revelation into the wilderness, out of Pharaoh's courts, into the wilderness, where, you know, where there were no nice little streams flowing and there were no little pickings there. It was a desert. And for 40 years he kept those people in the wilderness without anyone dying. There was not one feeble one amongst them. Can you just imagine that? They were not struggling for 40 years, but then afterward they became dissatisfied with that kind of life. They were overtaken by the cares of the world, by the deceitfulness of things what we want for our fleshly bodies. And they were destroyed by serpents, thoughts, beliefs, feelings, emotion, whatever it may be. So we don't want to be destroyed by these feelings that we used to have. And when we sometimes try to come up and the worries and the cares and the problems of this world try to take over our minds and worry and feelings, and we must not allow that to happen. But how? By becoming aware consciously that you are not a human being. Now I know that it's hard. I can feel that I'm a human being. I can see. No, you don't. You can't see yourself in the mirror. You think you're getting older. You can't get older. How can you get older? God cannot get older. Now it is the association or the communion in which we become aware of God's presence more and more when the anxieties of human existence becomes less and less, that there will be manifestations of what we call healing or what we call well-being or even prosperity or whatever it is. Things begin to work together for the good to those that love God and are called according to His purpose to find that realm, what He said in Isaiah, first here in have put on the new man which is renewed in knowledge after the image of Him that created him, where there is neither Greek or Jew. There is neither circumcision or uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond or free, but Christ is all and in all and as all. So that all that Paul in one sentence wiped out the whole human race, in all his beliefs, in all his beliefs in gods, in all everything, what activities, what we know today is religion, he wiped it all off in one thing, and Christ is all and in all and through all and as all. And that Christ is that one that talks about Isaiah 42. Behold my servant, whom I uphold. Who's that? The one that he begot in the beginning. That is the servant, the one that became aware of itself, you know what I mean, the way it was known of God. That is the one, that's the servant, that's the son. I call it the offspring because it's neither male nor female. See, it's an activity of spiritual impartation. Whom I behold is mine elect, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him, and he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry or preach or try to convert people, nor lift up, nor is cause his voice to be heard in the street. Huh? A bruised reed, or those that are hurting, and those that are having a hard time, shall he not break. And a smoking flax, just like a little candle, you know, that's just about to go out, and then you get a little smoke after the candle's gone out, a little bit of smoke. You know, it's almost gone, you know, it's just about gone. I made my bed in hell, everything is going wrong, there's only a little bit of smoke coming up now. But God does not leave you comfortless. He will send His Spirit to you, and He will brood over you and breathe upon you, and He goes, and His breath will cause the spark to come back again, and it comes alive. Oh, I'm not that old, sinning, miserable, corrupt little thing that I despise myself. I am the new creation, the new creature of God that is now coming into my awareness to bring about life, and life more abundant. That's the purpose. The purpose of Spirit coming is to give you life, and life more abundantly. I am come.
Yes.
I am come to awaken the elect within you. Awake thou that sleep. Immortality, in physicality, in the belief that you were born, in the belief that you're made out of atoms and whatever, you know what I mean? You're not. You're made out of spirit. And spirit has no weight to worry about. That's the ultimate design of God, creating and begetting you in His image and His likeness, to bring you to a place where Jesus found Himself, to bring back to everyone's remembrance who we are. That's the ultimate purpose of the gospel. The gospel is to bring life and immortality to light. It's already there. You don't have to become immortal, you are already immortal. You never ever shall see death again. Death is only possible in the molecular structure of something that you are not. Are you hearing that? Believe me, all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. And all our beliefs that we have entertained, the religious concept that we had, the condemnation that we have felt, the guilt that we have felt, everything what we have experienced is human, I will not remember. Actually, God cannot remember what you believed before. So He's taken away the memory of the past. And we know that past, future, past and future, or the distinction, is what Einstein said, the distinction between past, present, or future, or that there is a different kind of, but the distinction is that it is illusion. There is never past. You never lived in the past, and the things that are in the world is all past. It's all passed away. There is no more unfolding time, what we know today as the calendar, as the years, as the aging, or whatever it is, you know. That is a non-existing world that God does not know anything about. He only knows the eternal realm of now, where there is no death, where there is no disease, where there is no pain and sorrow, and there shall be no more hurt in all my holy mountain. Now, you've got to lay hold of that. Paul said, lay a hold of eternal life. Lay a hold of it. Yeah, but Brother Tony, I got such a hard time. Well, praise the Lord for that. The harder the time, the more you are drawn into the place where you find yourself. Is it cruel? Well, on a human level, it seems to be cruel. I mean, Jesus went to, I'll read that to you, in John chapter 5. When Jesus went to the pool, where all these crippled folk and all these sick folk were laying. In John chapter 5, after this, there was a feast of the Jews. And Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there at Jerusalem, by the sheep market, a pool, which is called by in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches, symbolically speaking of the 5 senses. And the 5 senses are responsible for all that stuff that's happening there.
Yeah. Wow.
It's all because of it.
Yeah.
And in these 5 senses, in these feelings, in these whatever beliefs, lie a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water, and whosoever then first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man there, which had an infirmity 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lie there, now obviously Jesus saw all the folk lying there, and they were all suffering. Did he pray for any of them? Did you notice that Jesus never prayed for any sick people? But when Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now there for a long time, in that case, he said unto him, will you be made whole? Oh, you know, I mean, what a question. There he is crippled, there he is, you know, down and out. Will you be made whole? Would you like to be healed? But then the man said, the important said, Lord, he said, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool. In other words, I'm lame, I can't walk, I can't go into that pool because somebody else goes there before me. But while I'm coming down, another step down before me. And Jesus said unto him, rise, take up your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole. Wow. And took up his bed and walked. And on that same day, there was the Sabbath. And all the Jews got very, very upset about that. That he healed one man on the Sabbath. I want you to understand this. That Jesus did not come just to heal sick folk. Now this is, people sometimes say, Tony, why do you say that? I mean, don't you want us to be made whole? Can't you pray for the sick? Yeah, I pray for the sick. If you want me to pray for you, yeah, I will do that. It's alright, I'll do that. But it is you that has to know, if I only touch the hem of his garment, I will be made whole. And your faith will make you whole. Is it cruel? Is it mean? Seems to be that way. Because there's not many that can touch the hem of his garment. What's that? Oh, I know. I mean, what's the hem of his garment? The hem of the garment of Jesus was the realization that he had himself, that he was the spiritual being, the offspring of God, into whom, or into that which all men and women and children are called into. For all shall know me. All shall get to know me, because all shall know me, or all shall know the true identity of spiritual identity, which is, of course, the image of God, you know. All right. A bruised reed shall he not break, and a smoking flax shall he not quench, until he shall bring forth judgment unto truth. Bringing judgment unto truth is until he has taken away all the knowledge what has ever existed in the world for self-preservation. Because that's basically the knowledge of this world is based upon self-preservation. whether it is increasing in war machines or in vitamin pills or in, I don't care what it is, it's all for self-preservation. Personal self-preservation, or whether it is self-preservation as a nation, politically or religiously. Now all that stuff what you can see in the world today, even the religions, you know, and the new Pope that now has to be, you know, selected as a new Pope that's coming, and everybody's looking towards this Pope as if this Pope can do something for them. Is there any man or religious leader that can do something for somebody? No. Not one. No. No man can help you except you work it out for yourself. Begin to recognize that it is an activity or a presence. There's a spirit in men. And that inspiration of the Almighty gives us understanding and brings us back the remembrance that we were in the Father before the world was. You know, so this is a prophecy of yourself, of the Christ, which is your true identity. And ye shall not fail, not be discouraged. Are you feel discouraged? Well then don't be discouraged, because the Christ that's in you will not be discouraged till he has set judgment in the earth, or make first of all your own righteous judgment. You know, that we can make righteous judgment. You know, I understand that? I think Mike never talked about that. Making righteous judgment. How do you do that? By knowing each other not after the flesh. Know nothing after the flesh. Know nothing after the atomic structure or whatever it is. Know nothing about it. Because the more you know about it, the less you will receive or understand what this spiritual dimension is that we're talking about, which is the Father of all. We've got to find it. He's the Father of all. And He's in you all. It's the awakening. And in that realm, we're no longer judged by the appearances. Okay? I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give you for a covenant to the people, for a light to the Gentiles. That's what you're called for, every one of you. To be that light. To open the blind eyes, and to bring out the prisoners from the prison of material sense, for the feelings of despair that they have. And then that sit in darkness out of the prison house. This is what Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is now upon me. He has anointed me. And He has anointed you. But first of all, we may have to make righteous judgment even of our own lives and our own experiences. So that we can escape the corruption that we all experience to a degree. So that the light will shine more brightly every time. I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another. What is the glory? Glorify me with the glory that I had with thee before the world was, before this atomic structural world came into being. The beliefs at least, because it did not come into being at all. It was an imaginary world that came into being, that came and was produced out of fear. And that's the survival syndrome, and the wars, and the famine, and the diseases, and the death, and all that stuff what we know as this world. As Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the belief in materiality. I know that I'm spirit, and that my Father is spirit, and my Father and I are one. And therefore we must worship the true God, not some kind of concept of religiousness, but a belief or a knowing that God is my life, that God is everything that I need, that He will keep me for all eternity, and He will not allow me to be overtaken by cares that we know today in what we see in this world. I am the Lord, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. You shall not have any other graven image. A graven image is something that you form in your mind as to be true, which is not true. You know, truth, what you think about God or about anything at all that you see and around about you when you judge it. Oh, that is an evil person over there. That's a graven image. Anything at all that we have that is not compliant to God's total loving nature is a graven image. Casting down every graven image to the obedience of Christ. No. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Behold, they spring forth, and I'll tell you of them. Sing unto the Lord a new song, and His praise from the end of the earth. He shall go down to the sea, and all that therein, the isles and the inhabitants thereof. That the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voice, the villages of Kedar, but those that inhabit, that the inhabitants of the rock sing. Are you inhabitants of the rock? Yes. What did Peter say? Thou art the rock. No, Peter said, you are the rock. Jesus said to Peter, you are the rock, not the new pope. Because he's called the rock. He's not supposed to have the keys. But you see, I'm not condemning anything. I'm pointing out to you that the revelation that Peter had, and Jesus said, upon this massive revelation I will build my church. And the gates of hell, or the powers of the unseen realm, the powers of death, of disease, or whatever it is, shall not prevail against you. And that's the truth. I'm not knocking religion. I know it is all a dream. It is a formula that man has formed. He has formed the God that he worships himself. So the whole of religion is a mind-formed thing that people believe is real, and not one thing of it is real. Not one little thing. The only thing what is true and real is the glory of God that was revealed, and they will not give it to another. Glorify me with the glory that I had before the world was with you, Father. So now we're coming to that place then where we depart from all fear, from all false evidence that appears as real but is a lie. And my peace I leave with you. Not as the world can give you, but my peace. Isn't that what Jesus said? Yes. That's what I say too, because my Father and I are one. We can say that to the public around about you. Even to your own husband, or your wife, or your kids, or whatever. Or your friends, or your neighbors. Or those that are troubled in their minds. My peace. You don't even have to say it, you just feel it. Let it radiate from you. My peace. Huh? Sometimes I can't explain the peace that I now feel. You know, it's a wonderful experience to feel no responsibility, have no care, no worries about anything at all, because I know that my Father cares for me. He loves me because we are one being. That's the mystery. And that's called the mystical union. The mystical union. My soul has now been married to that spiritual Father. and we bring forth fruit unto God, 30-fold, 60-fold, and even 100-fold. Amen.
Amen.
We thank you, Father, for your love. Thank you, Father, that we can now bear record, not of our human self, but of the true self. And we know, Father, that we know where we came from. We did not come from the mother's womb. We came from forth out of your bosom. And we are returning there again. We will no longer judge after the flesh, and no longer judge any man. And even if I judge, our judgment is true. Because we do not judge by appearances, we judge righteous judgment. We can feel that now working in every one of us, as we face every day with a new confidence, that my Father goes before me to straighten out the crooked path, and prepares a place for me and mentions for me that I can't even dream of, and the beauty of it that you have prepared for those that are now walking in the light of their new understanding that we are spiritual offspring, ordained of God from before the foundation of the world. Amen. And thank you. You all feel satisfied? Wonderful. This is the rest by which he called the weary to rest.